Hey, my friend, I'm Dr. Lee Warren, and I'm so grateful to have you back for another episode of the Self Brain Surgery Podcast. This is a Science Spotlight special episode, and we're going to talk about a molecule that you may not have ever heard of before called sulforaphane. Sulforaphane is a very important molecule involved in the pathway that downregulates inflammation and toxicity in your body. It's been studied, and there's been articles published about it, hundreds of them in peer-reviewed research. And it turns out to be most easily developed from broccoli and broccoli sprouts. Lisa got interested in this molecule because she read some articles about how it has anti-cancer properties and how broccoli sprouts are really good for you because of the process. When you chew it, it releases sulforaphane that your body can access, and it helps all kinds of things with inflammation and sleep and cancer fighting properties and pain reduction and all kinds of things. So she was growing broccoli sprouts in our house for a long time. But it turns out you can't get enough to matter unless you eat a lot of this stuff. Now, I've told you before, I've always been kind of a picky eater, and I never have liked broccoli, cauliflower, those kinds of cruciferous vegetables. So for me to find all these properties in a molecule made me sort of interested as a biochemist. Before I became a neurosurgeon, I've told you before, I was a biochemist, and my training and background in biochemistry and immunology has always made me interested in molecules that have the ability to up or down regulate genes in our body and do good things on our behalf. So that's why I love biochemistry. And I decided to have these Science Spotlight episodes this year because I want to bring some ideas to you and sometimes research that I find interesting, sometimes companies that are making products that are useful, sometimes molecules that you should know more about. We started the Science Spotlight series a few months ago with Dr. Singh from Timeline to talk about this urolithin A molecule that's involved in mitochondrial health. And then we had my friend Dr. Gina Nikitin to talk about mitochondria in general and precision medicine in specifics, where the idea of being able to test for what our mitochondria are doing may allow us to ultimately develop drugs and chemotherapy techniques and figure out what drugs might help a particular patient or what a particular patient might be able to do in terms of how to fight certain diseases or avoid certain diseases. And so that was a very fascinating episode to me too. And today we got another one. We're talking about broccoli sprouts. We're talking about the idea that sulforaphane is the secret sauce inside of broccoli sprouts that helps us do lots of good things in our body. And to that end, we have a special guest, David Roberts, from a company called Mara Labs. Now, you're going to hear David tell the story of where Mara Labs got its start. It's a sad story of David losing his wife, Mara, to cancer. But the good news for us is that the fight to try to find something that would help Mara led to the foundation of Mara Labs and the ability to stabilize sulforaphane, and it's led to all kinds of amazing things. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen. Make sure you don't ever miss an episode. So hit that subscribe button. If you're watching on YouTube, there's a little subscribe button down below. Be sure and hit that so you get notified whenever there's a new episode. We're grateful to be bringing you this Science Spotlight. And if you like these episodes, leave a comment below or email me, contact@drleewarren.com. Let me know if there's something you're interested in me researching, and maybe I'll bring you an episode about it down the road. Or if you find this helpful, leave us a comment. Let us know your experience with sulforaphane or with science in general. And I want to just take a moment to tell you why I love science so much. I love science so much because it's a path to learning more about what's true, or as my friend Gina says, to becoming less wrong over time. Science is a path to discovering answers to the other book that God wrote. It's been a famous quote of Francis Bacon for a long time, that God wrote two books, the book of nature and the Bible. Science lets us look into the book of nature. The Bible lets us look into the words of God in print and to hear his voice. And those two things are not enemies. The idea that science and faith are enemies is a product of worldview, a philosophy called naturalism or scientism. It's not a product of what's true about science or faith. They are not enemies. In fact, I would say, and I'm saying in my upcoming book, The Life-Changing Art of Self-Brain Surgery, I would say that your life can't really be everything that it's supposed to be unless you integrate science and faith, because you can learn more about God pursuing what's true in the universe, looking at the things he's created. That was the whole notion behind organized science in the first place, when Newton and all those guys 300 years ago said, hey, we need to study what God has done to try to explain it so people can be in awe of it. That's Psalm 111, verse 2. Great are the works of the Lord. They are pondered by all who delight in them. That verse is inscribed over the archway of the door of the Cavendish lab at Cambridge, where Maxwell discovered the laws of electromagnetism, where Watson and Crick discovered the structure of DNA. Every time a scientist walks through those doors, they've seen those words, great are the works of the Lord. They are pondered by all those who delight in them. That's why I love science. And these Science Spotlight episodes are designed to bring you some little thing that you can wonder about. And I hope it's helpful to you. So I'd love to hear from you. Contact at drleewarren.com. I'm excited to bring you my new friend, David Roberts from Mara Labs today. We're going to nerd out a little bit. We're going to talk about some immunology, some biochemistry. We're going to talk about sulforaphane and a bunch of other molecules. I think you'll find it fascinating. Let's get after it right now. Well, friend, we're back, and I'm so excited for this Science Spotlight episode. I've got a new friend to introduce to you today, David Roberts, all the way from Virginia with Mara Labs. Welcome to the show, David.
Thank you so much for having me, Lee. Good to be here.
Tell us a little bit about you and what Mara Labs is all about. It's a fascinating story.
Yeah, so we're a supplement company, and we basically were birthed out of my wife's cancer journey. My late wife, she died. She had breast cancer, thank you, and when 12, I think she was diagnosed, and she was a nurse and wanted to treat the cancer integratively. And so that meant kind of digging in research. My background's in the sciences. And so I did a lot of heavy lifting there. Pretty early on, found this molecule called sulforaphane, which is the lipid molecule from broccoli. It's discovered at Johns Hopkins back in 1992, and just over 2,000 studies on it. And so yeah, we ended up growing her cells in our lab, our cancer cells, and putting different things on them to see what killed her type of cancer. And sulforaphane was number 3. And so I ended up trying to go out and buy it, and ended up buying some stuff that was some sulforaphane glucosinolate, which is the precursor molecule, but it sounds like it's sulforaphane. And so she was taking it. I'm like, you're reading the literature, it's like, this stuff is amazing, and I'm like, that was not really working. So come to find out, it wasn't sulforaphane. So we ended up growing broccoli sprouts, like huge crops, like enough for 10 families, because we juiced it every day. And he did that for a long time. So yeah, we ended up, my business partner and friend, Dr. Jean Gilday, his wife had cancer. And so he was a big resource for us, Nobel quality scientist. And I would ask him lots of questions. He'd point me to different literature. And I think I said in passing one day, it would be sure nice to have a stable form of sulforaphane so that we could have it in a capsule. And 4 years later, he kind of nonchalantly was like, yeah, I think there's stabilized sulforaphane. And so I was like, what? And so anyway, we tested it. Sure enough, he had. And at that time, we were both working for a different supplement company. And so we were like, let's just sit on this and deal with it later. And Mara, my late wife, was like, we got to get this out. And so she ended up raising the seed money to get the stabilized sulforaphane out to the public. But unfortunately, about 6 months after that, she took a turn for the worse, pretty sudden, and died.
So sorry.
Thank you. So yeah, after that was September of 2017. By March of 2018, we had our first bottles, and we're selling it. So yeah, the mission of what we're doing is, the formal mission is to cultivate lifestyles of wellness for generations to thrive. So it's multi-generational. Like my boys, I have 2 boys. They were 7 and 9, which died 14 and 16 now. And we're doing fine. We're doing well. We have a great family, great support system, but how much better would we be doing if Mara was still with us? And so the idea is to have tools, nutritional tools available so that parents can be around to see their children graduate high school, get married. Grandparents, there's the stereotypical armchair grandparent who is kind of stiff. And then there's the ones that are on the floor playing and engaged. And we all want to be the latter. And so having things available, tools available, so that people can not just live longer, but live more actively longer.
Love it. And I love that the story of the company isn't just, hey, 2 guys are going to start a supplement company and sell vitamin D and vitamin C and all the things everybody else sells and make money. It was like, we're on a mission here to bring a molecule we believe in that's got properties that are going to help people live longer and be healthier. and we're going to start
Yes.
a company around that product. Like, so tell us a little bit about sulforaphane and why that was such a good target for you.
Yeah. I mean, sulforaphane it has a lot of benefits. Actually, in the peer reviewed science, there's 37 different benefits in the literature, but we talk about 3 or 4. So we talk about it's great for detoxification. So it's actually the best molecule at turning on phase 2 detoxification. It's good at stimulating brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, which is at the heart of brain health.
Yeah.
It stimulates the growth of new neurons, protects old neurons, and then also the antioxidant response system. So turns on 200 individual antioxidants for over 200, really. The expression of those genes being turned on lasts 72 hours. So that's has a lot to do with how people feel and inflammation and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it does a lot.
It does. And there's published peer reviewed research for every one of these benefits. It's not, it may do
Yes.
this or it might do
And we
that.
didn't write any of it.
That's right. You just figured out how to make it available. Why is it important to have stabilized sulforaphane? So what's the differentiator between there's several other companies that are selling products that are labeled as sulforaphane. So what's the deal about stabilized and why does it matter so much? Yeah.
The 2 companies that we've called out have given us legal letters. So basically companies, there are a number on Amazon who are smaller and they lead with sulforaphane and they don't have it. So they say 50 milligrams of sulforaphane and then you turn over the bottle and it says glucoraphanin. So if you have a head of broccoli, you start chewing it. It has the precursor molecule to sulforaphane called glucoraphanin. And so you start chewing it, you break the cell wall, it releases an enzyme called myrosinase. And then that actually creates a chemical reaction with the glucoraphanin to form sulforaphane. So you swallow it, you get the benefit. If you try to harness that sulforaphane, it degrades quickly in a day, 2 days, something like that. So it's not shelf stable. That's why people grow broccoli sprouts, because it's an easy way to get a nutrient dense form of sulforaphane. So the amount of sulforaphane in the seed is the same as in the sprout, the same as in mature broccoli. So people eat the sprouts, choose sprouts, whatever. And so basically what is stable is the glucoraphanin. And so people have learned how to extract that. And basically we're the only naturally derived stabilized sulforaphane company that is sold in America. There's one other stabilized sulforaphane company in France, and they do basically a solvent extraction called prostaphane, and they have sulforaphane. But the interesting thing is one of the companies that tried to take us out early on with it is a big, huge company. Ironically, I'm not going to that. But yeah, they basically challenged us. And so we doubled down on all of our research and we ended up improving our product. So it's not just broccoli, it's called broccoli plus. And so it was a 2-month period. It was, I was a swimmer in college. And so that was hard. But those 2 months of making the product and I put the boys to bed, make the product, make 4 batches, and we test until we had like a killer product. And so we ended up putting what we do. The plus is the cousin molecule. So from watercress called phenethyl isothiocyanate. So all of the different cruciferous vegetables have different forms of these cousin molecules called isothiocyanates. And so sulforaphane is the most popular one, but cabbage has one, watercress has one, cauliflower. So basically we just found in the literature that some person had done this experiment and showed that if you combine sulforaphane with this other form, you get a 5 times effect. So all of a sudden, correct. Yeah. Wow. And so we do is we have a test for the pathway that sulforaphane impacts called NRF2.
Yeah.
And so John developed, I think, the only test for NRF2 in a person. And so we take a capsule or 2 capsules or whatever, and then he does a before and after buccal swab. So your cheek cells and basically is able to show whether an NRF2 is induced or not. So the issue is, pretty much all of these glucoraphanin products really don't induce NRF2, which is the whole point of taking it. And so we think that the combination with the PEITC really has helped with our product clearly and strongly inducing NRF2.
Yeah, the listener who's unfamiliar, NRF2 is a molecule, nuclear factor erythroid 2. And it's right in the middle of everything related to the way our cells defend themselves from oxidative stress, right? And toxicity. So this is the kind of the center player in anti-toxic behavior in our bodies. And so that's why Dave Asprey said, the higher your NRF2 levels, the better, the more resilient your body is to fight everything. So to fight things off, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so NRF2, it's inside the cell. It's not just floating around in your body. And so what happens is when you ingest sulforaphane and it gets to your cell, goes inside of the cell and release the NRF2 is bound to a complex, and what the sulforaphane releases it from that complex. Right. And then it can go inside the nucleus and do its work. So, and it does the work on the genes. So basically it impacts to turn on those 200 different antioxidants. It impacts 200 different genes essentially that can then start helping out those antioxidants. And so one of the things that we studied, because we're all kind of toxin freaks, like we live in a toxic world, everything's killing us. My boys, we have great water at home, and I always send them to school with purified water, but they love the water fountain, and which is municipal water, which here is not the worst municipal water, but it's like you have, if you do a particle counter, you have 200 parts per million of something, and what is it? It's fecal matter, right? Pharmaceuticals, herbicides, pests, on and on. And so you don't want to be drinking that. But the point is that sulforaphane is great at detoxification. It's not, I mentioned before, it's the best natural molecule at phase 2 detox, but it actually is one of the only things that works in all three phases of detoxification. And so interestingly enough, when the first phase 1, which is where basically the toxins are chemically changed to be more water soluble, it slows that down, because a lot of the issues with detox programs is it makes people sick. And that sickness is that it revs up at phase 1, and you have all these toxins that are starting to get released, and your body can't process them. So sulforaphane is smart in that it slows phase 1, ramps up phase 2, and then phase 3 binding and excreting. And so, they're, like you said, all of these things are in the peer review, but one of my favorites is if you've ever been to China, in a city in China, you go outside, and most likely if you're out for 15 minutes, you have black snot unless you're wearing a mask. So there's a ton of air pollution. And so Hopkins did a study in one of these Chinese municipalities, and it showed basically broccoli sprout beverage showed all the toxins that were released in the urine. And most of them were related to automobile smoke or exhaust. And so it does a great job of clearing toxins. And that's important because we live in a toxic environment. Everything, what the air you breathe, the things you touch, you can sit on a couch and get inflammatory because it's there. And there's a study on that with women's breast milk. The food you eat, glyphosate actually is the precursor to, it's the active ingredient Roundup. One of the things John studied is because it's everywhere, right? And so we're all getting small amounts of glyphosate every day, even if we're eating organic. If you eat out, you're definitely getting exposed. And so what glyphosate does, what John showed, is it reduces, so the amount of glyphosate in a normal, it's a high, but you can still eat that amount meal where you'd eat out, reduces the NRF2 activation 30%, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that's basically 30% is a ton. Yeah. That basically can make you really sick.
So this is why you probably take it first thing in the morning. That's what Lisa. I know my wife. Not, by the way, I told you before we started, but I'll tell the listener. My wife is a nut about pursuing health and therefore making me healthier. And so she was on the case of sulforaphane for years and decided that she needed to grow her own broccoli sprouts. So we had a house full of these tiny plants because they're little and you have to eat a bunch of it to get a meaningful amount of anything. And
Yes.
then she found your product. And I was like, thank goodness. Now we take 2 little pills and we don't have all these smelly plants in the house all the time. So it was
Yeah.
just, it's just, that's how we found you. And when you guys reached out to me and said, hey, I think we'd be a good partner, I thought, well, this would be a really good, legitimate
Yeah.
partnership because we've been taking your product for 3 years. And so
Yeah. Yeah.
grateful to have this conversation today and grateful that we don't have to farm our own broccoli
Well,
sprouts.
we have a connection there because I grew them for 5 years for my late wife. And so I understand, you know, that I'll just say two things about that. I'm a big fan of growing them, but it takes a lot of work. Summertime, get fruit flies. Inevitably, there'll be mold in there, and you're like, and you lose a crop. If you travel, you can't grow crops when you're traveling. So having an option outside of the sprouts is great. But one of the things we did when we were trying to find seed to use for our product is we bought in 2020, we bought 7 different seed brands off of Amazon Organic. And only one of them could produce sulforaphane. Only one of them had glucoraphanin in it in order to and we're like, what the heck? Because we thought all broccoli seeds should have glucoraphanin. So yeah, with growing of the seeds, what we did was we looked a year after that initial finding of no brand, 6 of the 7 brands not having sulforaphane. And we got 9 brands, and gratefully, 8 of the 9 grew ended up having. What we ended up doing is basically we offer our seeds. We're not a seed company. We don't necessarily want people to buy our seeds, but we test every batch of our seeds. So we know basically in half a pound of our broccoli seeds, you'll get 400 milligrams of sulforaphane. So that we have that on our website, and that's sort of a community service. It's not our main thing, but it's people like them, and not everybody can afford the supplement.
Wow. Yeah, I said this a while ago about, you take it in the morning. And the reason you do that is Dr. Gilday said that sulforaphane basically doesn't just act as an antioxidant when you take it. It turns on this whole engine in your body that keeps going all day. So everything you encounter for the day, you're still getting benefit from that dose.
That morning, and that actually keeps going. So many of the genes, not all of them, stay on for 72 hours.
Wow.
And so it's like a 3-day thing. And so I like to tell the story. My youngest son and I went hiking in the Rockies, and it was a backpacking. So we packed in, had my broccoli, but in a baggie. And it's dry there. The only thing that really kills it is moisture. But woke up like morning 1 and it was all. And so you can do a pinch test. You can tell if you pinch it, it should not be rigid. So I did the pinch test and it was rigid. And so like, oh man, this is my week's worth we were there a week, this is my week's worth of broccoli. And I lost it day 1. And so find that day, find the next day, find the 3rd day. And then the 4th day, I was like, oh yeah, I can, it basically had worn off, and it's like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm feeling it feeling things I haven't felt in 8 years or 7 years or something like
Wow.
that. So yeah.
I think so. What do you think for the listener out there? Like, what would they expect to feel in their body a few days after they started taking broccoli?
So I'm a guitar player. I don't play very well, but I enjoy it.
Kindred spirit.
And when more I was, basically really sick, I wasn't taking great care of myself, but basically I got to a place where I couldn't play more than a couple minutes because my fingers hurt. And so fast forward, 6 months, we have the product and we all start taking it. Like almost immediately, we're all like, did you notice something? Like, yeah, did you notice something? And so my hand pain was completely gone. And so we're like, it seems like it's working really quick. And so the very first year, probably a couple months in, very first study after we got our lab out was looking at how quickly it worked. And so what we did was we found that one serving size, so 10 milligrams of sulforaphane decreases the pro-inflammatory pathway IL-6, 30% in 24 hours.
Wow.
And so that's enough basically that you can feel the difference, about 30% reduction. Now, what happens on day 2 or day 3? We haven't looked at that, but my suspicion is that your inflammatory markers keep going down.
Wow. interleukin 6, that's involved in all kinds of autoimmune processes and all kinds of things in the body.
Yeah, I mean, I was just gonna say, yeah, it's kind of upstream from the NF-kappa B, which is a little harder to measure. NF-kappa B is sort of the holy grail of inflammations, the marker that a lot of the pharmaceutical companies go after. But yeah, so I mean, feel it, pain. Basically, the biggest thing that they will feel is pain. I had another friend of mine, their mom, who had had to stop chopping vegetables like carrots because she couldn't hold a knife.
Wow.
After she started taking her stuff, fine, could hold a knife. My boys, high school or middle school, actually elementary school principal was a tennis player, coached high school tennis team. She actually she started taking it and she comes up to me and she's like, "Can I talk to you?" And he's like, "Sure." She's like, I've had knee pain from, sports injury from tennis for years and years. And not only is my pain gone, but I didn't even realize it was swollen until the swelling goes down. I just thought it was fat. And so it was crazy. So yeah, pain, people notice pain. The BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, you will get vivid dreams. About a quarter of people have vivid dreams at night. And that's the BDNF kicking in. So,
Yeah.
early on when people were like, this doesn't do anything. I was kind of the one-man shows, customer service, make this stuff. And I was like, well, we have an unconditional money-back guarantee. It's fine. I'll give you a refund. But let me ask you, have you been dreaming vividly recently? And a lot of people were like, no way. That's this stuff. And so, yes, that's the BDNF kicking in.
Wow. Our listeners will know about BDNF. We talk about neuroplasticity and neurogenesis and brain health all the time on this show. So I was excited to see that there's a connection with anything that can increase BDNF, because that's like one of your molecules, joy
Yes.
and brain energy and feeling better when you go through hard things. So as I told you in our preamble, most of the listeners here have gone through something hard. That's how they found my work. I deal with a lot of people with brain cancer and a lot of bereaved parents. We lost a child a decade ago and all of that. So our listeners are looking for things in their lives that are tangible, ways that they can feel better and be happier and have healthier lives and all that. So I'm just really grateful for the work that you're doing, David, and bringing good things like this to the market that really actively help people. And it's not just another supplement company selling stuff because they can. So your work is holy to me, and I appreciate what you're doing. What other products are you working on? What else is Mara Labs doing?
Yeah. I mean, so broccoli was the first and we made it because it wasn't out there. There was no stable form of sulforaphane. And so the other thing, basically everything we're doing, well, it's stuff that we want to take, but we can't find supplements that are good enough. And a lot of it has to do with being fat soluble or lipid soluble. Now, sulforaphane has no problem getting in and getting where it needs to go. It's both fat and water soluble, actually. But things like curcumin, it's less than 1% bioavailable. So that means less than 1% of whatever you take gets through the gut barrier and into the bloodstream. And so basically, if that's the case, there is a threshold amount of these molecules, concentration that you need to turn on the biology. And so what curcumin does is it's great at reducing that pro-inflammatory pathway, NF-kappa B. And so, but you actually need a certain amount to get in, to actually do that and get to the cells and turn off that pathway or reduce that pathway, down regulate. And a lot of the research I was doing when my late wife was sick was like, you read these great papers on like PubMed about how curcumin does all this stuff. Cancer, pretty much, it's like miraculous, but it's on cells, right? And so then you have to think, okay, there's not an IV. So you're taking something orally. At that time, there was some kind of bioavailable forms like Mariva, that's like 3 or 4% higher than normal curcumin, which still isn't that much. A little bit gets through. So how much do you have to take so that, how much needs to get to the cell? Right. So there's all this, we're trying to figure it out. Nobody's doing that research. And so basically with the lipid soluble supplements we basically came up with a technology that makes them highly bioavailable.
Wow.
You always, if you make everybody, like every curcumin company, if you go on Amazon, everyone's the best, right?
Yeah.
We have the best curcumin, and so there's a kind of a dilution of like who really is the best, and so, but we've done a lot of testing, and ours, as far as the bioavailability, is the best we've seen.
Wow.
The other one, there's the one that is in the literature, the most bioavailable is, I think, 3% curcumin and 97% detergent.
Wow.
And so what it does is it actually aggravates your gut lining,
Make it leach.
to make it permeable. Yeah, to make it permeable so that the curcumin can get in. So we were doing a study on this to kind of go head to head, and we were doing it different doses so we could make sure we saw the effect. But one of the guys, the study got sick. And it was basically, if you take enough of a detergent, you actually strip the lipopolysaccharides off the bacteria. And that's what happened. And so anyway, when we were looking at it, we did, again, an IL-6 urine test, and that one actually increased inflammation. And so it's like, that's the opposite of what you're thinking,
Yeah.
And so anyway, we want, basically, if there want things on the market that are good, we won't make them, because if it's just stuff that we can't find. And so we have that we want to take. So we have a bioavailable form of curcumin that's really good. We have a bioavailable form of resveratrol, but I don't think there are any that I could have come across that are bioavailable.
Right. And berberine, right?
Berberine, yeah, we have a bioavailable form of berberine that's really good. And that one actually is interesting because we launched the product, getting out there, and about 6 months in, I'm like, we need testimonials because, it's a good product. And so I sent an email out to the users, the people who had bought it. And it was like, hey, can you answer this questionnaire? Like, what are the benefits you're seeing? Well, they're shocked that 70% of the people on our berberine were taking it for sleep. And I'm like thinking it gets you because it regulates your blood sugar. And so I immediately went to the literature, and this study, which now is one of my favorites, it's how berberine, just regular berberine, not even bioavailable berberine, outperforms Valium as a sleep aid.
Wow.
And so what it does is it increases the result was increases dopamine by 25%, increases serotonin by 30%. And so yeah, it's great for sleep, but I am always, because of my, losing my wife to cancer, and cancer is tied to sugar, I'm very hyper about blood glucose levels, and so I'm always taking it for that. And so we also have a bioavailable form of quercetin. So quercetin is probably not one people have heard about that much, but it's in the skins of like apples or berries. It's highest actually in the skins of onions. So the part we throw away is the best part.
Yeah.
And so, but what it does is it great for reducing histamine levels. My cough was from allergies. We have a ton of pollen here. And so I took some at lunch to kind of make sure my allergies would behave for the interview. But yeah, and the other thing, of course, it does is it's great as a senolytic. So basically it will kill senescent cells.
Wow.
And so that's one of its claims to fame. We, with all of the rigmarole and the popularity of the GLP-1s like Ozempic, we did come out with a natural weight management product. So basically EGCG, which is the good molecule in green tea, that's comprised of EGCG or green tea extract, that berberine and alpha-lipoic acid. And so alpha-lipoic acid and berberine are really good at regulating the blood glucose. And then what the EGCG does is it works in satiation. So it does a great job at cutting hunger. And I read that in the literature, but one of the things that we did last fall was, because we don't have an EGCG product, but we're always interested in the product, and green tea is really not that bioavailable. And so we're like, well, how much, when we bind it to the carrier molecule, how much more bioavailable is it? And so we found that it's 225 times more bioavailable than regular green tea.
Wow.
It's a massive amount. And so what the EGCG does is it turns off your hunger hormone called ghrelin. or it doesn't turn it off, it reduces it. So we started taking it. We're like, we're like, are you hungry? Nobody had any hunger pains. Now we could eat. So a lot of people on the GLP-1s have trouble eating. It's stomach acid. It's just, you feel kind of bad. But, there's a difference between eating and snack. I think it reduces snacking essentially. So you're not walking around hungry all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so the berberine is different in that product is different than our berberine. In our it's called GL Perfect. We bind it to the protein. And so our carrier molecule actually this is an interesting story. So basically it's a molecule, it's a plant-based molecule like hemp protein, and we bind a C-base carbohydrate to it. And so it's sort of a unique molecule. We have trying to get a patent on it, but we were just going to use plant protein, and that was the plan. And John calls me up and he's like, there's this patent that basically it's like literally it named every phytochemical, every plant-based compound, and every protein. And so they try to patent everything. So, I mean, you can fight that, but it's costs money. It's just like, and so they got it. It's not like an American patent. It was like this worldwide patent. So I'm like, John, come over for lunch and let's just start talking about, not thinking we would solve it. And so, but we came up with lunch, said a quick prayer, and lo and behold, we came up, just talking together, came up with this molecule. It works. It's like going to, I think that's a great story because it's kind of like saying, wake up in the morning, you're at the ocean. I'm going to go out and find like a prehistoric shark stew, just because I want to, and see. So it's just because you want to doesn't mean it's going to happen. Anyway.
But it did.
It did happen. We attribute that to divine inspiration, 100%.
Absolutely. My audience will resonate with that. What role does faith play in your work?
I mean, we're not a Christian company, but a lot of people who work here have faith in Jesus. And I mean, since I kind of lead the company with John he's a partner in the company, but he doesn't work in it full time. And then my other full-time managing partner, he lives in Colorado, and he's a really wonderful man of faith. And so, yeah, I mean, it is in and through everything we do.
Cool.
Yeah.
That'll resonate with our listeners as well. It's a faith-forward community of people who are interested in science. I'm a biochemistry nerd from way back. My undergraduate degree was in biochemistry. And back in the days when you had to take 2 semesters of physical chemistry to get a degree in biochem. So legit biochemistry major.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if we didn't talk about this, but I spent 3.5 years working at the Oklahoma Medical Research Foundation in an immunology lab of a guy named John Harley, who's one of the big players in lupus, autoimmunity, and ankylosing spondylitis. And so when I started reading all y'all's work, I was like, these are my people. Like, I love biochemistry and the work you're doing to just make humanity better and make our lives better. David Roberts, thank you for your work and your time and for bringing your message and this great mission that you're on to our listeners today. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I really appreciate meeting you and talking to you. You ask good questions. So thanks for having me on.
God bless you and your work, my friend. Thank you. What a great conversation. I'm really grateful for David Roberts and the work that he and Dr. Gilday and all the other scientists at Mara Labs are working on and doing for us. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to bring you this information today. Check it out. We've got a special opportunity because of our partnership with Mara Labs. You can save up to 15% on your order if you decide to buy a product from Mara Labs. You don't have to. You could just learn a lot from this episode. There's lots of other companies that are making sulforaphane, and you can eat it from broccoli sprouts. As he said, you can buy the seeds even and grow it yourself. So you don't have to buy this product. But if you do, you have an opportunity to get a 15% discount when you buy any product from Mara Labs, Mara-Labs, MARA-LABS, mara-labs.com/brainsurgery15. That's the Dr. Lee Warren special discount. If you order anything from Mara Labs on that first order, you'll get 15% off your order. We're so grateful for David Roberts and the work he's doing, for the time he has spent with us today. I hope this has been helpful to you, friend. Remember, you can make your life different, but before you can, you have to change the way you think. That's why on the Self Brain Surgery podcast, we always say you can't change your life until you change your mind. Please subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen. Leave a comment or a rating or review. That really helps us. And make sure you get my newsletter drleewarren.substack.com, drleewarren.substack.com. Every Sunday since 2014, I've been bringing you my best prescriptions for how you can change your life. By changing your mind, you can smash neuroscience and faith together to transform your life in accordance with Romans 12:2. Don't be conformed, transformed instead by changing the way you're thinking. Hey, my friend, I'm grateful for you. Hope you come back next time. We'll have more Science Spotlight episodes frequently. We're going to have something every Friday for you, either a Frontal Lobe Friday or Science Spotlight or something else great. And every Monday, you get the main podcast. Also, check out the Spiritual Brain Surgery podcast. Every Tuesday, we're bringing you a deep dive into what we believe, why we believe it, and how science and faith can work together to help us share it, live it, understand it, and defend it. So hope you check out Spiritual Brain Surgery too, wherever you listen to podcasts. In the meantime, I'm Dr. Lee Warren. Glad to see you today, my friend. God bless you. Don't forget to start today.